Yeah, we're live. Hi, guys.
Hi, I'm Dawn Fraser, and I'm here to talk about masseuse massage chairs.
So because that's just something, and then there was.
Hey, Di. Good to see you.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's the Cryptid Huntress. I hope you guys are doing wonderful and had a great weekend. And thank you so much for being here with us today.
Okay, Di, this is the first time we watched this girl. I've seen similar channels, and they're usually rather interesting.
My gosh, it has been one heck of a weekend for me. And today we have a wonderful show for you guys. I do have Barry Littleton here in the studio today. We're going to be getting into some really interesting and weird topics in regard to reptilians today. And I don't know if you guys watch Jimmy Kimmel. I don't. but there was a very interesting little conversation he had last week with Kate Beckinsale, the actress, talking about someone laying some eggs. And I don't know, it could have some reptilian vibes to it. We're going to talk about that today, plus much more. Okay, so much more. Y'all know we always bring the interesting conversations to the public with Barry and I. And also, I know I'm unfortunately I lost a very good friend yesterday. And if I'm a little looking aloof and feeling a little aloof today, I'm very much heartbroken over losing my very good friend, James Reek, yesterday. Y'all know James. He has been on the show here on my channel, the Cryptid Huntress channel, many times. And he and I have spent a lot of time together since the day that we met.
Hey, baby. Good to see you, mate.
And so I'm still trying to process this right now. But he did pass away yesterday, and Barry and I we're going to talk about James a little bit today before we get the show started. And yeah, so y'all please send prayers to James's family and all his friends. And he is a pioneer in the disclosure movement in regard to the secret space program. And
oh, no way.
Very much missed, and he will be missed. So, all right. If you guys would like to follow along with all of my shows and to check out my social media links and things.
Well, we are the test case, Di, as you know. Australia's a test case.
Things like that. Please go over to my website.
Baby, this isn't Christian orientated. It's just cryptic orientated.
It's the cryptidhuntress.com. And you guys can find all of my shows over there. And my calendar of events. I don't have any events coming up this month in December. It is December, y'all. It's Christmas. Oh my gosh, where did this year go? It's just flown by. But I do have some events January, February, and March. We've got events on the calendar already. So y'all come out and see me. Some of these events that I'm gonna be at. Okay. Also, I do have a Patreon if you guys would like to support my work. And also, thank you so much to everybody who's been buying items out of my shop over on Etsy. It's called War Woman Goods. And I do have vintage Native American type jewelry and more over there. So thank you guys so much for all of your support. It means the world to me. Okay, well, let's get our show today. Okay, and I'm going to bring Barry up. Let's see, I'm going to go ahead and read the summary of what we're going to be talking about today, and then I'm going to bring Barry up, but we've got more to talk about. Okay, so today we are exploring recent strange reports and research on reptilian humanoids. And like I said last week on the Jimmy Kimmel Show, Kate Beckinsale claimed that her daughter's boyfriend laid 2 eggs. Okay, this weird claim could be a joke, or it could also be disclosure. Some claim that medieval knight's armor was also an
It's certainly a weird thing to say, isn't it?
exoskeleton. We're going to talk about that today because they were actually reptilians underneath that armor. Now, not all of them, but some of them may have been reptilians. And we're going to get into that today. And also,
From what I understand, reptilians are much bigger than men, so I can't see how they'd fit into that armor.
so we're going to get into why the real gigantic bells were confiscated and destroyed. It also has something to do with reptilians. And then we're going to get into some new contacts that have hit the market. I don't know if you can buy them freely right now, but some infrared contacts that allow you to see not only in the dark, but
Bobo, you're only here for a puff of wind. Get to know Jesus and you survive forever.
while your eyes are closed, you can see. And people who are testing them out are claiming that they are seeing interdimensional beings, very much like that dicyanin dye goggles. Okay, so you guys, please help me welcome to the show my co-host for the day, my longtime friend and colleague here. With all of this information that Barry and I, we've done a lot of work together. And Barry's also a good friend of James Rink as well. And please help me welcome to the show, Barry Littleton. Hey, Barry.
Greetings, my friend. Snow setting in where I'm at. Fun. I'm no great fan of the snow by any means.
Oh, no.
Thanks for having me on.
Gee, what a happy-natured guy.
I got to tell you, you're taking me down the rabbit hole yet again. These are two situations that I've not heard of. So it'll be interesting. You know, people listen. Now, basically, people are getting demon contact lenses. I mean, the red lenses. That's what okay.
Yes. Yeah, it's like the dicyanin dye goggles, but in a contact form now. And I'm going to pull up a website today, and we're going to go over these articles today. And yeah, people were actually, the people who were testing them had to quit testing them because they were seeing interdimensional beings like monsters with claws and stuff all around them and coming towards them. And one person even said that as it approached them, this monster, it went through their body. Okay, so it was like something that it was almost like a hologram, but it was some kind of interdimensional thing they were seeing, and it freaked them out so bad they had to quit testing the contacts. And I don't blame them. I don't. Apparently, they're going to try to tweak them a little bit and make it where they could see in the dark, and then they take out the interdimensional being side aspect of those contacts. But I don't think the world's ready for that yet. I don't think they're ready for it. I'm not. I don't think.
Do you know what that reminds me of?
What does that remind you of?
You know me. I always use entertainment references. That's what spirit brings to me, or just what I can recall always. There's a movie from a novel by H.G. Lovecraft. It's called From Beyond. And during that movie, it's a book but a movie too. And during the movie, they show you that there's actually this thing that they call it the resonator. This quantum-looking machine, and when they turn it on, it vibrates the pineal gland, so that your pineal gland becomes much more active and alive. And the first thing, when they generate it in the field of energy, you start seeing these things that look like piranha floating around everywhere in the room, and these different beings. They kept like, "Don't move! Why? because they'll see you.
He's like tripping out.
They can't see us without the resonator, but it's on. You know, so but that's just something. And then there was a big one that came that was, as you said, bit the people's head off like a gingerbread man.
Oh,
Anyway,
God.
that was the vibe. But seriously, what you're describing though is kind of similar to that. And it got to a point where too much exposure to the field of energy from the resonator would cause actually the pineal gland to emerge as almost a separate organ and move around. It's kind of interesting movie, but these goggles seem to have contacts seem to have that same effect. And you know, it's traumatizing because the demonic and the dark is so accessible
That's certainly weird.
here.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It roams around. It's just a frequency of these beings that eat us, that use us as food. And go ahead and say your word, loosh.
Loosh. Yeah.
Anyway, that's just neither here nor there. We have something else that we want to talk about too. But that's interesting. You know, I've not heard about this, so it'll be interesting to do some research on it. You know.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, I want to thank Amariel Darkflame. Thank you so much. My condolences and prayers. Thank you so much for your support. I appreciate that. And also, Shelly. Thank you, Shelly Montgomery. Hugs to Jessica. Sorry for your loss. Thank you, Shelly. That's very sweet. I appreciate that. Barry, you know, we gotta acknowledge James right now. You know, and he is a dear friend to both you and I. And we've both spent a lot of time with James. And I don't know. I
Wonder what he died from.
You know, can I say something about him? Honestly,
Yes,
you know, and it's cool because, okay, you know, I'm very candid about everything. You know that. I don't hold back on much, and I don't normally keep my mouth shut. It's so interesting because James and I had a rough start.
I know.
And it started the first conference we were at. You know, he kept,
Right here.
Yeah, he kept coming up and interrupting me, and I'm not accustomed to that. And he didn't introduce himself. It was just very rude, and it pissed me off. And I was not a big fan of his. And I had at that point right there, I had said that. I said, I'm not a fan of that. I stepped in front of him. I said, hey man, you keep interrupting me. You won't introduce yourself, yada yada. And then he says, oh, maybe I can help you with some of your experiences. I was like, what? I'm not SSP and Tyler ran over there and interjected. And that was kind of my perception of him. So I was rather public that I didn't care for it much. Okay. I didn't hide that. Right. Then I encountered him a second time in Asheville about a year ago, just over a year ago. And you know, the first thing he does, Jessica, he walks up to me. We're all sitting there to like get ready to introduce ourselves, just the beginning ceremony. And he walks up and he says, hey, Barry, how you doing? Shakes my hand.
Hey, Phil, good to see you, mate.
Then he sits right next to me. Okay. And then before we could eat dinner, I got like, people don't know who I am until maybe I'll say something and it just catches people's attention and they'll start talking to me. So I couldn't get to the dinner table. And just when I get there, there's like nowhere to sit in that room. And first of all, it's a little bit stressful because good people, but it was mostly like a vegan diet. And her brother might want like a nugget or a rib or something. And I wound up sitting at this table. There's just a few of us, and James is one of them. He's sitting like right, really close to me, and he keeps engaging me the entire dinner thing. As I'm sitting there, I'm like, this is blowing me away. So then most people leave. I tell them, I said, hey man, you know, I'm not a big fan of yours, man. After the way we kind of initially met. You know, he kind of ticked me off a little bit, and I'll never forget it. He looks at me and he says, Barry, I'm so sorry. He said, I've got something kind of similar like Asperger's, and sometimes I'm really rude to people, and I don't mean to be. And I've offended so many people, and a lot of people hate me because of it. He said, I'm really sorry. And it was so heartfelt. And I just said, hey, man, you know, I said, hey, man, you know, we're all good. I said, because when I came in after that one night, and I saw you doing the breakdancing, he was spinning with his glove and everything. He had his jam box. I said, man, I'm not seeing anybody breakdancing since 1982 or 83. I said, I knew that, you know, there was something unique about you. I said, don't worry about it. And then we wound up like hanging for that entire conference. You want to come and expand our B&RB.
I'm having a good day, Phil.
we went to this place and had a couple of brews. This really
It's
nice
only 11
brew
a.m.
with
here,
some
but it's a
pictures.
beautiful day out
He was
there.
telling me, oh, some people are never going to invite you now to anything. I'm like, oh, man, I don't care. Really, really a good time. Okay. And that place got flooded out like 2 weeks after that was
Hey,
done.
Thas, here he
But
comes.
point being, I mean, he made
Good to
such
see you,
a good
mate.
second impact on me.
I'm not picking you up
And
every
he said, "Hey,
5
man, you
minutes.
wanna go
I'm
see
telling
the,
you.
the Brown
I'm
Mountain?"
not doing this all
So
day.
we went and saw
You've
that. That was a
already
unique
started.
experience.
I'm
It
not
was
doing it.
really, really cool in that way. And he was telling me about some people that had, that hurt him and stuff. And I became a little bit kind of defensive of him. You know what I mean? He was a good cat. I did an interview with him. He taught me to do this interview. He was good. He was trying to blend things together. And before I wrap this up, I'm saying this because this is stuff I told him personally a couple of times, okay? In person and online too. And then we did this show. The last time I actually talked to him, your show.
Yeah.
And when we started off, I just told him, saying, I wasn't always a big fan of yours, but you totally made a second impression on me. And that's not easy with me, okay? And I mean, I understand. I'm a pretty good judge of people and character, as you well know. But sometimes, hey, I can make mistakes too. You know what I mean? And I just really told him that I think he did really good work. He was doing good work.
No,
He had a
just
huge
couple
fan
more
base
later.
that he built himself.
You know what I
Like we
mean?
were talking about one-on-one in person. I said, man, I really
Just
respect
take
it
it out
because
of my
I
car.
can research the stuff, and I know you didn't buy your subscribers. They're real. He's like, no, Barry, I didn't know that they're real. I worked real hard on it. He's like real excited. Yeah. But I mean, just really, it was cool. We still kept communicating after the conference, and he wanted me to try to make it to his. I didn't to make it though, but he was a good
I'm
cat.
happy
He really
with my
was.
bank
And the
account.
last thing I'll say about this,
That's where it should be.
I thought about that cat all night. I really did.
Make
And
out.
you told me I did a live yesterday, and you told me just minutes before I went live. And it wasn't to be mentioned at that time, but I couldn't stop thinking about him during that.
Megan's going to the vet to get an injection.
Especially the subject I was dealing
So
with.
hard to put her harness on.
I was hoping it kind of wasn't true, But and that says a lot about who he was. The fact that it hit so many people when he passed. And we're all thinking about him, and people are going to look more into his work and what he was doing and what he was saying will live on and grow. And I think that's really important because that's what real people do. People with integrity and heart do. They touch others, touch other people's lives. And when their energy leaves the containment body, it goes out and touches us all. And that happens with great people. You know what I mean? That's a characteristic of a great person. Sorry, I didn't mean to go on so long about it, but it was a really kind of a cool story, my whole deal with him. That cat totally grew on me, and I really liked him. You know what I mean? And I just think that needs full acknowledgement what a unique, cool cat he was,
It does. That was wonderful, Barry.
I would hope when I go out, I have that effect on people.
Yeah.
At least close. You know what I mean? Because it's honorable.
Absolutely. He touched a lot of lives, and he always will be a pioneer in the disclosure community, especially in regard to the secret space program. And this was the last time. This was actually the last night that I got to hang out with James, and I was privileged to be asked to join him down at his conference down in Florida a couple of months ago, and it was a wonderful event. And this was the last night that we were there. I had dinner. I sat beside James for dinner that night, and we had a really good time. Of course, he was not feeling well while we were down there. He did suffer from some health problems and stuff, and he got
they killed him.
Ill right before the conference and was in the hospital, but made it down to the conference. And I'm glad that he did. But yes, he will.
Last moves off to the vet to get her injection. We give her an injection once a month to stop her scratching and coughing. And then we not put up with it. We got to fix her all month and then take her back again after a month. So we're looking after Moo as much as we can, but she's getting old.
He looks decisively different in that picture than when I saw him the year before. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm sorry that he went through that.
Me too. Well, if you guys haven't gotten your copy of Lone Wolf, y'all. I was gonna have James autograph this the next time I saw him, and I'll never be able to do that now. But please get a copy of this if you'd like to know James's story. And I have not read this yet. I haven't had a chance to. I got this down at the conference, and it's called Lone Wolf Alpha Squad Copy Over, James Rink. And yeah, and any chance I get, I will. If I ever have like a holiday or something, we have.
Hello, mate.
Kind of show, I will be playing some of James'
The cat
shows
just jumped
together.
up. Come here, buddy.
And in the future, I do have Jimmy Payne scheduled to come back on the show.
come
You know,
here,
Jimmy and
you're
James
my
are very
buddy. Come
close
on.
as well, and Jimmy's coming on with me here the next month or so.
Boy.
And
Yeah, my
so
dad
we're
will
gonna
scratch you.
we're gonna keep this disclosure.
Oh, cat.
How do you stay cool in a rental if your landlord won't allow AC installation? It's the size of a small microwave. Cools rooms up to 51 square.
Keep this disclosure going, y'all. Okay, and in honor of James, we'll do that.
I would ask anybody that actually watched the last show that we all did together, because I told him that at the beginning. I'd already told him before privately, but I told him during your show, and that's just kind of the interactions him and I had. So it was really positive and good.
That's I never knew that. That's why coffee gives you a bit of a kick in the morning. Wow, I never knew that.
That's what it's all about. We start bringing the difference, because when he wanted me on the show, I was like, he said, but it'll take me probably a year to edit it, though. I'm slow with it. People get mad, but I'll get it up. I was like, that's fine, you know. But he wanted to he's trying to bring, like I was bringing the different experiences together. That's really important because it's a tapestry. So that's the kind of good interactions him and I had. So, you know, and to be honest with you, the cat was funny. He made me laugh quite a bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I've had so much fun with him. I mean, I was just going through all my pictures. I was trying to find pictures from the first time that we met at the Journey to Truth conference with you and I, Barry, was the first time we met him. And I think the first night we were there, he was breakdancing in the.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
I'm like, who is that guy? I was like, who is that guy in there? He's breakdancing, you know. And super impressed with his breakdancing skills there.
Yeah. He even had his glove. He was spinning on the glove. Yeah.
He did. And then, and I mean, he was so much fun to be around.
Couldn't have been as bad as the Australian at the Olympics breakdancing. I think her name was Ray Gunn, and she hopped around like a kangaroo. Oh, man, it was horrible.
Y'all, if you didn't know James personally, he was so fun to be around. And consequently, every single event that I went to after that, and even like vacations that I took, James was always there. He popped up every single place that I went. We took vacations. We did, you know, trips to Montauk. I mean, that was a very special week up there at Montauk. And
You know, Jessica, out in Asheville, he was telling me, he's like, Barry, I got a technique that I think will call the Sasquatch in out there. And he took everybody waltzing way out there to those mountains. And I didn't go because, I'm sorry, it was just a little too wet. Some people are walking without shoes on. And a brother like me, you know, I can't do the barefoot thing. Honestly, a lot of brothers can't. Anyway, but I didn't have protection around the feet. But he took everybody out there. And a lady named Jan that I've been actually giving me rides, picking me up and stuff. And she was really good friends with Christy. But she was very much empathic and very telepathic. I think a whisperer, honestly. And she started picking up strong Sasquatch energy out there after James did this his little technique he wanted to try. And so did some other people. You know, in those conferences like that, you get a group of people that are, you know, telepaths, psychics, mediums, contactees. That's what's cool about those conferences. So you get people that are on a higher level. And they start having a lot of Sasquatch interactions. I can remember Jan asked me before that when I first met her husband. She said, what can I possibly learn about Sasquatch? And why would they interact with me? And she's tripped out because people were asking her to talk about it or something. She knew nothing about it, she kept saying. I said, well, they can sure teach you about the band. And then we were sitting at that place where James took me and having lunch. And she said, you know, I started dreaming about them and that stuff he told me about them being keepers of the land. And she started to have this total encounters out there. And so the whole thing, it ended up being ending part of that conference, the ending ceremony. That was because of James. So it was really cool, you know.
Yeah. Oh
And
yeah,
that's an interesting place too.
it was. Yeah, James had a great way of bringing people together too, and I really do appreciate that. It was awesome, and he actually made it a point to come see me at some of my events. He traveled a great distance to come see me at a UFO conference in North Georgia and the Bigfoot conference and stuff. He always went out of his way to come support me, and so I always tried to support him as much as I could too. So yeah, so rest in peace to James. Good for him.
Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you, Donna. Donna says, I love you all. Sending love out to y'all and healing energies. Blessings to everyone in this chat and whomever watches this video later. Thank you, Donna. That's very sweet of you. We appreciate that. Okay, well, I know James is appreciating all this and he is watching us right now. I know he is. Okay, that's what Long Island Bigfoot just said too. Saw that. And Mike was a good friend too. Long Island Bigfoot, Mike and I went with James one night. And I'll bring Mike on to talk about this one day soon. We were in Montauk, and we went out one night, just me and Mike and James. And we went to Indian Rock, called Council Rock. And I swear, I was so worried we were going to get kidnapped. I literally thought we were going to get kidnapped that night, Barry. It was weird. I've never felt like I was a grown woman going to get kidnapped, except for up there. We were doing, it was like I was hearing voices. We were, we're looking for Bigfoot and ghost activity. We're doing all this kind of like a paranormal investigation, kind of. But we were right beside this like Illuminati hotel called the Montauk Inn or something. I don't even know. And I was just convinced there were people watching us out there. It was the weirdest feeling. And so it's actually a good memory looking back on that, because I was a little scared. I'm not gonna lie, Barry. I was a little.
Yeah, it's interesting because, to be quite honest with you, I didn't.
Montauk Manor.
I didn't care for the Brown Mountain Lights area. it's like somewhere to come up missing. It seemed like.
Gabe told me when you hacked on Facebook, they got access to your profile and your friends. They can't actually post things up that it says, have you got something to say, and you make a comment and it's posted. Apparently they haven't got the ability to do that. I've already told everyone on Facebook, on Messenger, that have been hacked, do not accept friend requests. I got a friend request last night and I thought, that's me. Where does that come from? And after checking around, I've been hacked. So if I can only get into the profile and the friends list, I'm okay with that. So long as they can't get into my chat mode.
If I was a teenager, I definitely would be going there to make out. You know what I mean? It was kind of just to creep people.
No, there's nothing I'm hiding that they can ruin my life with. I thought about it. I thought, what have I said on Facebook that they could use against me? And there's really nothing there.
But not that it wasn't interesting. I saw some interesting anomalies there, especially when we first were getting out of the car. But I just wouldn't, want to hang out there too long. Just a bit creepy.
Yeah. Well,
thanks, Di.
It was a good time, and I've had some wonderful memories with him. And
Yeah.
Di, can you send that to me on Discord, please? Oh, wow, you give me the answer right there.
He comes up to me. He comes up to me and he says, he has his bag. Man, I really just want to go get some real food. Are you down with that? I said, yeah, I'm down with it.
Yeah, Bobo, what I'm worried about is they'll be able to comment on my behalf and post it. That's all I'm worried about.
Man, we rolled out. We got some steaks. Yeah. And he knew that whole area because he's from there. So
thanks, Di. I just got it. Thank you.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
Another lady named Missy Hill, really cool. She had probably some of the coolest 3D binoculars, several different sets of them I've ever seen. And we're all standing out there watching like a lot of UFO activity out there in those mountains too. Quite interesting, Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
I can reminisce forever, my friend.
Di, can you send me the second one as well, please?
I know, I could too. Amy says, "Do you guys remember the last show that he did with me? Yeah, and his funny skits to make us all laugh. He was so sweet. I'm so sorry for your loss. Thank you, Amy." Yeah, James came.
Bobo, no matter what the topic on any subject, give it 3 minutes and I searched a list and found a link to it and she'll post it. She's absolutely brilliant, isn't she?
On here, I had Jimmy Payne on last time. It was only a month ago. He was on my show, and Melissa came on with him, and Melissa and James they had on there. I mean, they saw me that I was dressed up like Spearfinger, so they hurriedly got their hats, and they were their witches or wizards from Harry Potter, and they did a little skit every now and then.
Oh, that's original. Go to a Halloween party dressed as Harry Potter. Yeah, real original, guys.
Pause the show with Jimmy so they could do a skit. It was funny. It was actually kind of funny. And Jimmy couldn't hear because the audio was weird.
Oh, good, Di.
So
thanks.
He was like, "What are they doing?" I was like, "Don't worry,
Cat, you're making it rock. Don't lean against it.
Just give us a second, Jimmy. We'll get back to the show." But it was really sweet, and yeah, he was a wonderful person, man. Wonderful person. So, all right. Well, let's lighten the mood a little bit, okay? Because I have some weird.
No, get into the reptilians. I didn't get here to hear about your dead mate. I come here to learn about reptilians.
Stuff to talk about today, Barry. Very weird. This was something that I heard last week, and I could not get this off my mind. But it was Thanksgiving, and I hope you had a lovely Thanksgiving, Barry.
Yeah, I did. I hope you did too. Actually,
Thank you. I did. Mine was busy. I ate too much. Okay.
Yeah.
And I cooked too much. but you know, like I told the audience earlier, I do not watch Jimmy Kimmel. I just don't know for some reason. I don't know. He's annoying.
He's two left.
But I don't watch any late night. I don't watch any TV period anyways. Okay.
Yeah,
But he had
Imagine that.
I know, right? I don't even watch TV. Okay. But Jimmy Kimmel had Kate Beckinsale on, and Barry, I love Kate Beckinsale from.
Okay, guys, I'm Oh, hang on. No internet connection. Let me reboot the telly. Because the laptop's still going. The laptop didn't go, so the TV stream ran out. Got done. I don't know why I have to reboot it, the TV, because the net dropped out, but it hasn't dropped out on the laptop. So I wonder what's happening there. But that's your solar flares doing this. There you go, we're back. I might go with something else because that's boring. We're an hour in, they haven't spoken about reptilians at all. I'll give them a bit longer. Oh. Yeah, ditch it, yeah. Hang on. I've lined something up, but I can't remember what it is. So let me just check. All right. Okay, is this? No, I don't want to watch that. It's just a screen. Hang on. Okay, guys, we'll go off the headline now and change it. It's no longer about reptilians. They didn't tell us anything. We just listened to them and they didn't tell us one thing. So this looks good. Zechariah 5 describes American fall in exact detail. Sounds interesting.
What if I told you the Statue of Liberty was predicted in the Bible? Not as a symbol of freedom, but as a warning of judgment. Sounds impossible, right? Sounds like conspiracy theory. Sounds like someone reading modern events into ancient scripture, except for one problem.
It's
The
true.
details match perfectly. Zechariah chapter 5, verses 5 through 11. Open your Bible right now and read it. I'll wait. 2 women with wings, carrying a basket of wickedness, flying to the land of Shinar to build a house for evil. Sounds symbolic. Sounds like it has nothing to do with a statue in New York Harbor. But every single detail Zechariah described is standing in America right now. The woman, the wings in the original design, the commerce, the wickedness, the permanent house being built. A prophet in Jerusalem 2,100 years ago saw across the Atlantic Ocean. He saw what would stand in New York Harbor. He saw what it would represent. He saw where it would lead. And what he saw should terrify every American Christian. Let me show you why. Zechariah was a prophet who lived around 520 BC. The Jewish people had just returned from 70 years of captivity in Babylon. They were rebuilding Jerusalem, rebuilding the temple, trying to restore what had been destroyed. And God gave Zechariah a series of visions, 8 night visions in one night,
Wow.
each one revealing something about Israel's future, about God's judgment.
God would have made him remember that, because there's no way you remember that many points in a dream. So, yeah, it's definitely God behind that.
About what was coming. The 5th vision is the one we need to focus on, because it's the strangest one in the entire Bible. And for 2,500 years, nobody could fully explain what it meant. Until now. Because when you understand what Zechariah saw, when you match the symbols to what actually exists in the world today, the connection is undeniable. This isn't about finding hidden codes. This isn't about twisting scripture to fit current events. This is about reading what the text actually says and recognizing that a Jewish prophet described something that wouldn't exist for another 2,400 years. Something that stands 305 feet tall in one of the most famous harbors in the world. Something that millions of people see as a symbol of hope and freedom. But something that Zechariah saw as a symbol of...
Actually, Vas, I've seen where Apollo is Statue of Liberty is an Apollo in drag, and you see paintings and drawings of Apollo in like ancient era. The face is the Statue of Liberty's face, so I think it's Apollo
wicked
in a dress, no less.
Being transported across the sea to build a permanent dwelling place for evil. I'm going to walk you through this vision step by step. We're going to break down every symbol, every detail, every element that Zechariah described. And by the time we're done...
No, it's more than just a statue. Baby, what you got to realize with the Bible, everything's symbolic. If you can't take it literally, you take it symbolically. And the Statue of Liberty is a symbolic symbol.
You're going to see the Statue of Liberty in a completely different light. Not as Lady Liberty, but as the woman Zechariah saw carrying evil to the new Babylon.
Okay, this will be good. I haven't seen a special done on the Statue of Liberty yet. I've already got it saved.
Let's look at exactly what the prophet saw. Here's what Zechariah saw, word for word from Scripture. Zechariah chapter 5, starting at verse 5. Then the angel who talked with me came out.
Yes, it was a gift from the French. And what French give it to them? The Freemasons, the 33rd degree Freemasons gave Franklin, Benjamin Franklin. He was over there. They organised the Statue of Liberty. It was given to him by the Masonic Club. And Bobo, if you know the Masonics, they're the ones behind all the sexual rituals, evil rituals against Christ rituals.
And said to me, "Lift your eyes now and see what this is that goes forth." So I asked, "What is it?" And he said, "It is a basket that is going forth." He also said, "This is their resemblance throughout the earth." A basket going forth, not staying in one place, moving, being carried somewhere. And this basket represents something that exists throughout the earth, global, worldwide, not limited to one nation or region. Keep reading. Verse 7. Here is a lead disc lifted up, and this is a woman sitting inside the basket. Then he said, "This is wickedness." And he thrust her down into the basket and threw the lead cover over its mouth. Stop right there. A woman sitting inside the basket. And the angel identifies her clearly. This is wickedness. Not symbolic wickedness, not abstract evil. The woman is wickedness. She's the personification of evil itself, and she's sealed inside the basket with a lead cover. Contained, covered, hidden during transport. That detail matters. We'll come back to it. Verse 9. Then I raised my eyes and looked, and there were two women coming with the wind in their wings, for they had wings like the wings of a stork, and they lifted up the basket between earth and heaven. Two women with wings, not angel wings, stork wings. Why does that matter? Because in Levitical law, the stork was an unclean bird. You couldn't eat it. It was ceremonially unclean. So Zechariah sees unclean creatures carrying wickedness.
Yeah, exactly.
Evil being transported by unclean means. And they're lifting the basket between earth and heaven. Elevated, flying, carrying this wickedness through the air.
Yeah.
Verse 10. Zechariah asks the obvious question.
Thus, Apollo's got the keys of the abyss. Apollyon in the Bible, Apollo to the Greeks. I love the Greek pantheon. They make really good PlayStation games. I got to admit, it's fun fighting centaurs and cyclopses and Hercules. I love my PlayStation.
So I said to the angel who talked with me, "Where are they carrying the basket?" And he said to me, "To build a house for it in the land of Shinar.
A beacon of evil.
When it is ready, the basket will be set there on its base." The land of Shinar. That's the key. That's where this all comes together. Shinar is mentioned in Genesis 11. It's where the Tower of Babel was built. It's the location of humanity's first organized rebellion against God after the flood. Shinar later became associated with Babylon, the Babylonian Empire, the place where God's people were taken into captivity. So when
Shinar. Is that why the Freemasons call themselves Shiners?
the angel says the basket is being carried to the land of Shinar, he's saying it's going to Babylon. But here's the problem. Ancient Babylon fell in 539 BC, about 20 years before Zechariah had this vision. So this can't be about ancient Babylon. This has to be about a future Babylon, a new Babylon, a nation that embodies the same spirit of rebellion that existed at the Tower of Babel. And notice what they're doing there. They're building a house for wickedness, not a temporary dwelling, a permanent house, a place where evil will be established, institutionalized, made into the foundation of the nation. Let me summarize what Zechariah saw. A basket representing global commerce and economy. A woman inside representing wickedness, sealed with a lead cover during transport. 2 women with unclean wings carrying this basket through the air across a distance, taking it to a new Babylon, a land associated with rebellion against God.
Yeah.
And there, they build a permanent house for wickedness. For 2,000
Didn't Prometheus apparently bring fire to mankind?
400 years. Scholars read this and couldn't make complete sense of it. They tried to fit it to ancient Babylon, to the return from exile, to symbolic spiritual meanings, but none of those interpretations matched all the details, because Zechariah wasn't seeing his own time fully. He was seeing America, and he was seeing the symbol that would represent it, the Statue of Liberty. Let me show you why this connection is impossible to ignore. Let's go through Zechariah's vision detail by detail, and I want you to compare each element to what's actually standing in New York Harbor. First, the woman. Zechariah saw a woman. The Statue of Liberty is a woman. That's obvious. But it's not just any woman. The official name of the statue is Liberty Enlightening the World. Liberty is the English translation of the Roman goddess Libertas, a pagan deity, the goddess of freedom in Roman mythology. So from the very beginning, this statue represents a pagan goddess, not a biblical symbol, not a Christian image, a false god from Roman paganism. That matches Zechariah's vision perfectly. An unclean image, associated with rebellion, associated with human ideas of freedom apart from God's law. But there's more. Second, the wings. Zechariah saw 2 women with wings like storks. Now, obviously, the Statue of Liberty doesn't have literal wings attached to it today. But here's what most people don't know. The original design concepts by Frédéric Auguste Bartholdi included wings. Early sketches show a winged figure. The idea was that Liberty would have wings to represent her enlightening influence spreading across the world. Those wings were removed from the final design for structural and practical reasons, but the concept was there. The symbolism of flight, of carrying something across
Wow, I never knew that.
distances, of elevation above the earth. And even without physical wings, the statue stands on a massive pedestal, elevated, rising above the harbor, between earth and sky, just like Zechariah described. The basket being lifted between earth and heaven. Third, the crown. Look at the crown on the Statue of Liberty. 7 spikes, radiating outward like sunbeams. Officially, those 7 spikes represent the 7 continents and 7 seas. Global reach, worldwide influence, universal enlightenment. The statue isn't just for America, it's liberty enlightening the world.
Vast, you know how Rome took over the Greek gods? Who was Prometheus? Who did they name Prometheus? Like in the Roman pantheon?
Global
Because they hijacked all their gods and renamed them.
ambition, global impact. That matches what the angel told Zechariah. The basket represents their resemblance throughout the earth. Worldwide scope, not limited to one nation. America's influence through culture, military power, and economic dominance has
Diane, he secretly likes learning about Christ, don't you, Bobo?
shaped every continent.
I think he definitely wants it to be proven so he can become Christian. Stick around, Bobo, you'll learn.
Every nation has been touched by American values,
Yeah, that's
American
true.
products, American philosophy. The 7 spikes on that crown represent exactly what Zechariah saw. Global influence, worldwide reach. Fourth, the location. This is critical. Zechariah was in Jerusalem when he saw this vision. The basket was being carried somewhere. The women were transporting it. Ancient Babylon was east of Jerusalem, overland. not across the sea, but Zechariah sees the basket being carried through the air, elevated, moving across distance. From Jerusalem, if you travel west, you cross the Mediterranean Sea, then the Atlantic Ocean, and you arrive at the eastern coast of North America, New York Harbor. There is only one global superpower across the sea from Jerusalem to the west. Only one nation that fits every other characteristic of end times Babylon, America. And standing in that nation's most famous harbor is a 305-foot statue of a woman. Coincidence?
That's quick.
Keep listening.
Yeah.
Fifth, the harbor and commerce.
Did she cry?
Zechariah saw a basket.
Get the nurses to take
In
it out the
Hebrew,
bag.
the word is
I
You
can't,
don't
I
see.
can't hold
that's a
them.
measuring
yeah.
container used for grain and goods.
Does you know
It's
she
the
get an
largest standard
injection when that
measure in ancient
happens?
Israel.
Yeah.
The
Does she
ephah
smear?
represents commerce, trade, economic activity, buying and selling. And where does the Statue of Liberty stand? In New York Harbor, one of the busiest ports in the world for over a century. From 1886, when the statue was dedicated, until the mid-1900s, millions of it.
Guys, and who creates the professional porn the most in the world? Silicon Valley, California. They put out more porn than everyone put together.
Immigrants arrived by ship. They sailed into New York Harbor, and the first thing they saw was the Statue of Liberty. But it wasn't just immigrants. They were commercial ships, cargo, trade goods from Europe, from South America, from around the world, all flowing into New York Harbor, the basket of commerce, the ephah being carried to the new land. Ellis Island, directly behind the Statue of Liberty, processed over 12 million immigrants between 1892 and 1954. 12 million people carried across the Atlantic, brought to the new Babylon to build the house.
Over 50 years of immigration, Biden let them all in 1 minute and let nearly in as much. He let in 10 million. These guys let in, what did he say, 15 million or something?
The symbolism is exact. Sixth, the wickedness being transported. This is where it gets uncomfortable. But we have to face what Scripture says.
Yeah.
Inside the basket was a woman representing wickedness, and she was sealed with a lead cover during transport.
Yeah.
What does that mean? It means the wickedness was hidden, contained, not fully revealed during the journey. Think about America's founding, 1776. The nation was established with at least a veneer of Christian values. The Declaration of Independence mentions the Creator. Early Americans attended church. Moral standards from Christianity shaped law and culture. The wickedness was there. Slavery existed. Greed existed. Pride existed. But it was.
You know, it was the white Christians that organised slavery to be done in the West, be done with in the West. Like somewhere in the 1780s, they went to Parliament in England, and it took that long to release them all, but they're the ones who stopped slaves becoming slaves in the West.
Was covered.
The Christians.
Contained, not openly celebrated. The immigrants coming to America in the 1800s and early 1900s were told this was a Christian nation, a land of opportunity, a place of freedom and morality. They didn't see the wickedness fully. It was sealed under a lead cover. But Zechariah saw something else. He saw that eventually the basket would arrive at its destination. The house would be built.
That basket, that sounds like Pandora's box, doesn't it? I wonder if that's a Greek version of Pandora's box.
And the lead cover would be
Or a
removed.
Roman version, I should
The
have said.
wickedness would be revealed openly, proudly, institutionalized into the very foundation of the nation. And that's exactly what happened in America. 7. The land of Shinar. Shinar appears 3 times in the Old Testament. Genesis 11, the Tower of Babel. Daniel 1, referring to Babylon. And here in Zechariah 5, every time it appears, it's associated with rebellion against God, human pride, mankind attempting to build a civilization without God's authority. The Tower of Babel was humanity's attempt to reach heaven through their own effort, to make a name for themselves, to unify under human leadership instead of submitting to God. God confused their languages and scattered them. But the spirit of Babel never died. It just moved to Babylon, to Rome, and now to America. America was founded on Enlightenment principles, human reason, individual liberty, self-determination. These sound good, but at their core, they're about mankind being the measure of all things, not God's law, human rights, not divine authority, popular sovereignty, not biblical morality, personal freedom. That's the spirit of Shinar. That's the spirit of Babel. That's rebellion dressed up as liberty. And the Statue of Liberty embodies that perfectly. She holds a torch representing enlightenment, human knowledge, human progress, human wisdom. She holds a tablet with the date July 4th, 1776, the day America declared independence, not just from Britain, but independence as a philosophy, self-governance, self-rule. She represents everything the Tower of Babel represented, humanity building its own path to greatness without God. That's why the angel told Zechariah the basket was going to the land of Shinar, not because it's going to geographic Babylon in Iraq, but because it's going to the new Babylon, the nation that embodies the spirit of rebellion. The final expression of human pride before God's judgment falls. Zechariah saw it all. The woman, the symbolism, the location, the commerce, the wickedness, the rebellion. He saw the Statue of Liberty 2,400 years before it was built. But he saw something else too. He saw why it was being taken there, to build a house. And that's what we need to look at next. Zechariah 5, verse 11. The angel says the basket is being carried to the land of Shinar to build a house for it. Build a house. Not a temporary tent, not a brief stopping point. A permanent dwelling, a foundation, a structure that's meant to last. This is about establishing wickedness, making it part of the infrastructure, part of the culture, part of the legal system, part of the national identity. And that's exactly what happened in America. The wickedness didn't appear all at once. It was built gradually, decade by decade, brick by brick, until the house was complete. Let me show you the timeline. For the first 150 years of American history, the nation at least pretended to honor God. Christianity shaped public life, prayer in schools, Bible reading in courts, the 10 Commandments displayed in government buildings. The wickedness was there. Make no mistake. Slavery, greed, pride, racism, all of it existed. But it was covered, hidden under a veneer of Christian morality. The lead cover was still on the basket. Then something changed. 1962. The Supreme Court ruled that prayer in public schools was unconstitutional. For the first time in American history, God was officially removed from public education. That was the first brick in the house. The first open rejection of God's authority in the public square. 1963. Bible reading in schools banned. Another brick. 1973. Roe versus Wade. Abortion legalized nationwide. The right to kill unborn children declared a constitutional freedom. Over 63 million babies have been aborted in America since that decision. 63 million lives ended in the name of personal choice and bodily autonomy.
China's got 300 million body count. Imagine how mad God is with all this.
That's not just a brick. That's an entire wing of the house. A room dedicated to child sacrifice. The 1980s and 90s. The prosperity gospel explodes in America. Preachers teaching that God exists to make you wealthy. That faith is a tool for getting what you want. That following Jesus means health, wealth, and happiness. It's a complete perversion of the gospel. And it was exported worldwide through American televangelists and megachurch movements. Churches in Africa.
Di, that link you just posted about the hospital or whatever it was, you just can't trust them with vaxxers now or anything like that. We can't trust our health carers anymore because they're extremely complicit with the COVID crap.
Asia, South America, all adopted this false teaching. They learned it from America. They drank the wine of America's spiritual fornication. Another room in the house, a room dedicated to false religion. 2000s, the sexual revolution reaches its peak. Pornography becomes mainstream, accessible on every device, in every home. Statistics show that a massive percentage of American men, including Christian men, regularly
That is not the real temple wall, that Wailing Wall. When Rome conquered Jerusalem, Rome leveled it. Now, Rome didn't leave things standard. They completely leveled Carthage, and Carthage was a massive seaport and everything. So there's no way they would have left the wall standing of the Jewish temple that they could all wail at. It wasn't part of the first temple, guys, or the second temple, I should say.
consume pornography. Marriage rates plummet. Divorce becomes normal. Cohabitation without marriage becomes the standard. The biblical design for sexuality and family is completely abandoned.
I saw Chuck Missler talking about the future, and one of his things he said, you will see sex on TV. Now, back then, that was so unheard of. Now, you go watch Love Island or something like that, and they have sex. They just put a light blanket over them, and they have sex, and you can see they're having sex. So Chuck Missler was right, and he said it was the last days. So that's a little sign we're in the last days too. Because look at the perversion on TV now. I don't watch much TV. I watch the news and some sports. That's about it.
Room dedicated to sexual immorality.
Sorry, guys, I'm very talkative.
2015, Obergefell versus Hodges. The Supreme Court declares that marriage can be between two men or two women. The definition of marriage established by God from the beginning is officially redefined by human decree. Within years, this redefinition spreads globally. Nation after nation follows America's lead. What God calls an abomination is celebrated as progress. Another room in the house. 2020s. Transgender ideology takes over. Men claiming to be women. Women claiming to be men. Children being told they can choose their gender. Puberty blockers. Hormone treatments. Surgical mutilation of healthy bodies. And if you speak against it,
wow, this guy's spot on.
You are labeled hateful, bigoted, on the wrong side of history. This isn't just accepted in America. It's enforced. Through law, through corporate policy, through social pressure. The house is nearly complete. Do you see what happened? Decade by decade, America built a permanent dwelling place for wickedness. It wasn't sudden, it was methodical, intentional. Each generation pushes further away from God.
Yeah, he's right.
Each generation makes wickedness more acceptable, more legal, more celebrated, until we arrived today.
Okay, Bobo, don't talk like that, mate. Don't say that word here. It's not cool.
Where killing babies is called healthcare, where sexual perversion is called love, where mutilating children is called affirmation, where rejecting God is called enlightenment. The lead cover is off. The wickedness is fully revealed, openly displayed, proudly defended. The house is built. And here's what makes this even more disturbing. America didn't just build this house for itself. America exported this wickedness to the entire world through Hollywood movies celebrating every form of immorality, through music promoting violence, drugs, and sexual sin.
Okay, it's still an innuendo, Bobo. Let's be honest, mate.
Through social media
Come on, Moo.
platforms spreading American
Come on.
values of radical
Hold up.
individualism and self-worship.
Come
Through
on,
foreign
hold up or
policy
not?
that pressures
Come.
other nations to adopt abortion rights, LGBTQ protections, and secular humanism. Through corporations that refuse to do business in countries that maintain traditional moral standards. America built the house and then invited the whole world to come live in it. That's what Revelation 17 means when it says the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of Babylon's fornication. They drank what America was serving. They adopted America's values. They became corrupted by America's influence. The basket went out throughout the earth, just like the angel told Zechariah. And now the house stands complete, a permanent monument to human rebellion, a dwelling place for every form of wickedness that God hates, built in the land of the new Shinar, the new Babel, the new Babylon, America. But here's what you need to understand. God doesn't allow houses built for wickedness to stand forever. The Tower of Babel was scattered. Ancient Babylon was destroyed. Rome fell. And Zechariah's vision doesn't end with the house being built. Other prophets tell us what happens next. The house falls, suddenly, violently, completely. And everyone who's inside when it falls will be destroyed with it. That's the warning. That's why God showed Zechariah this vision. That's why the symbolism is so precise and undeniable. So we would recognize the house, so we would see it being built, so we would understand what's coming, and so we would get out before judgment arrives. Zechariah 5, verse 11. The angel says the basket is being carried to the land of Shinar to build a house for it. Build a house, not a temporary tent, not a brief stopping point, a permanent dwelling, a foundation, a structure that's meant to last. This is about establishing wickedness, making it part of the infrastructure, part of the culture, part of the legal system, part of the national identity. And that's exactly what happened in America. The wickedness didn't appear all at once. It was built gradually, decade by decade, brick by brick, until the house was complete. Let me show you the timeline. For the first 150 years of American history, the nation at least pretended to honor God. Christianity shaped public life, prayer in schools, Bible reading in courts, the 10 Commandments displayed in government buildings. The wickedness was there. Make no mistake, slavery, greed, pride, racism, all of it existed, but it was covered, hidden under a veneer of Christian morality. The lead cover was still on the basket. Then something changed. 1962. The Supreme Court ruled that prayer in public schools was unconstitutional. For the first time in American history, God was officially removed from public education. That was the first brick in the house, the first open rejection of God's authority in the public square. 1963, Bible reading in schools banned. Another brick. 1973, Roe versus Wade. Abortion legalized nationwide. The right to kill unborn children declared a constitutional freedom. Over 63 million babies have been aborted in America since that decision. 63 million lives ended in the name of personal choice and bodily autonomy. That's not just a brick. That's an entire wing of the house, a room dedicated to child sacrifice. The 1980s and 90s, the prosperity gospel explodes in America. Preachers teaching that God exists to make you wealthy. That faith is a tool for getting what you want. That following Jesus means health, wealth, and happiness. It's a complete perversion of the gospel. And it was exported worldwide through American televangelists and mega church movements. Churches in Africa, Asia, South America, all adopted this false teaching. They learned it from America. They drank the wine of America's spiritual fornication. Another room in the house, a room dedicated to false religion. 2000s. The sexual revolution reaches its peak. Pornography becomes mainstream, accessible on every device, in every home. Statistics show that a massive percentage of American men, including Christian men, regularly consume pornography. Marriage rates plummet, divorce becomes normal, cohabitation without marriage becomes the standard. The biblical design for sexuality and family is completely abandoned. Another room, dedicated to sexual immorality. 2015, Obergefell versus Hodges. The Supreme Court declares that marriage can be between two men or two women. The definition of marriage, established by God from the beginning, is officially redefined by human decree. Within years, this redefinition spreads globally. Nation after nation follows America's lead. What God calls an abomination is celebrated as progress. Another room in the house. 2020s. Transgender ideology takes over. Men claiming to be women. Women claiming to be men. Children being told they can choose their gender. Puberty blockers. Hormone treatments. Surgical mutilation of healthy bodies. And if you speak against it, you're labeled hateful, bigoted, on the wrong side of history. This isn't just accepted in America, it's enforced through law, through corporate policy, through social pressure. The house is nearly complete. Do you see what happened? Decade by decade, America built a permanent dwelling place for wickedness. It wasn't sudden. It was methodical, intentional. Each generation pushes further away from God. Each generation makes wickedness more acceptable, more legal, more celebrated.
Guys, should I play that Colonel McGregor one next? I like Colonel McGregor. Should I play that next? It'll take us out of the stream. Good time. What do you think, guys?
Until we arrived today, where killing babies is called healthcare.
Yeah, I thought so, Di. I like Colonel McGregor. Who's the other general? Tricky. Remember Tricky? He hated one of the generals, called him the pedo. I can't remember which one. Okay. Yep, there it is.
914, or the history of empires is not written in ink, but in the miscalculations of arrogant men who believe they can outrun the consequences of their own hubris. We are standing at a precipice that looks remarkably similar to the summer of 1914, or perhaps the terrifying 13 days of October 1962. Yet the silence in the Western capitals is deafening. For decades, I have studied the mechanics of power, the rise and fall of hegemons, and the brutal reality of geopolitics. And I tell you now that the events of the last few days mark a terminal shift in the global order. We have crossed a threshold that the establishment in Washington, London, and Paris desperately wants you to ignore. But reality has a way of shattering illusions with the force of a sledgehammer. The illusion is that the West can wage a proxy war against a nuclear superpower without ever facing the barrel of the gun itself. That illusion died the moment the Oreshnik hypersonic system slammed into its target at Mach 10, obliterating not just a factory complex, but the entire strategic calculus of NATO. We need to look at this with...
Was that in Ukraine? I remember that. They went bunker busting and wiped out half of NATO.
Cold, clinical detachment. The Russian president has explicitly designated the decision-making centers in London and Paris as legitimate targets. This is not rhetoric. This is not the usual diplomatic condemnation. This is a direct operational warning that follows the reckless decision by the United Kingdom and France to allow Storm Shadow and Scalp missiles to strike deep inside Russian sovereign territory. The establishment media will tell you this is unprovoked aggression. But any student of realism knows that in the anarchic system of international relations, provocation is measured by capability and threat, not by moral posturing. When you fire advanced weaponry into the heart of a nuclear power, you are effectively declaring that you no longer fear their deterrent. You are betting your civilization on the gamble that they are bluffing. But the Oreshnik launch demonstrated that the era of bluffing is over. This weapon, capable of traveling at 3 kilometers per second, striking targets with zero warning time, and completely bypassing every existing air defense system in Europe, is the ultimate reality check. It is the kinetic manifestation of a new multipolar order where the United States and its vassals no longer hold the monopoly on violence. To understand why we are here in the twilight of American hegemony, we must strip away the sanitized narratives taught in Western universities and look at the raw machinery of empire. The United States has long
Diane, Tricky was like us. He never went to church. So we provided some comfort and friendship for him in his last days. We knew he was going. He went just before Christmas, though, didn't he? I really liked Tricky. He was funny.
operated under a doctrine of exceptionalism, a belief that it is immune to the laws of history that constrained Rome, Britain, or the Ottomans. This belief is rooted in the post-Cold War era, the so-called unipolar moment, where Washington convinced itself that it could dictate the political realities of every corner of the globe without ever facing a peer competitor. We saw this hubris in the expansion of NATO, a military.
Okay, Bobo, enough of that. Who's got the biggest rooster? Enough of that. We don't do that stuff here, mate.
Alliance that lost its raison d'etre in 1991, yet continued to march eastward, devouring territory and violating the most basic tenets of balance of power politics. They told us it was about spreading democracy. They told us it was about defensive security. But look at the map. Look at the encirclement. This was never about defense. It was about the indefinite perpetuation of American primacy at the expense of Russian security. Consider the Monroe Doctrine. Since 1823, the United States has declared the entire Western Hemisphere its exclusive sphere of influence. Washington has overthrown governments, instigated coups, and strangled economies from Cuba to Chile, all to prevent.
I can read, Bobo. I know exactly what you meant. We don't do them sort of jokes here, mate.
Any foreign power from gaining a foothold near its borders.
In fact, I've got a potty mouth, but I rarely swear here.
This is standard great power behavior. I do not condemn it as a moral failing. I identify it as the behavior of a survivalist state. But here lies the systemic hypocrisy that is now dragging Europe into the abyss. The United States claims the absolute right to security guarantees in its own hemisphere while simultaneously denying that same right to Russia on its own borders. They placed missiles in Turkey in the 1,960 seconds and were shocked when the Soviets responded in Cuba. They are doing the same today, turning Ukraine into a forward operating base for NATO, and now they feign outrage when Moscow responds with the logic of a besieged fortress. This double standard is not just unfair, it is dangerous. It assumes that Russia is not a great power, that it has no red lines, and that it will accept strategic defeat rather than escalate. That assumption has just been vaporized by a hypersonic warhead. The panic we are now seeing in the back rooms of Downing Street and the Élysée Palace is palpable. For years, European leaders have acted as enthusiastic cheerleaders for this proxy war, secure in the belief that the American nuclear umbrella provided a magical shield.
Okay, baby, just letting you know, we don't appreciate sexual jokes here. It's not Tinder.
Against consequences. They believe they could bleed Russia dry, destroy its economy, and induce regime change in Moscow, all while sitting comfortably in their capitals, untouched by the horrors of the front lines. The Storm Shadow strikes were the culmination of this arrogance. By providing the targeting data, the technicians, and the hardware to strike, Russia, Britain, and France became direct combatants. There is no legalistic ambiguity here. If you provide the gun and aim the hand of the shooter, you are part of the murder. Moscow's designation of London and Paris as targets is merely the formal recognition of a state of war that the West initiated but refused to declare. But now, the geography of fear has changed. The Oreshnik missile proves that there is no shield. There is no interception. If a decision is made in Moscow to strike, the British Ministry of Defense...
That's their supersonic weapon. Apparently can do 1,800 miles an hour. And they haven't even got time for the radars to zero in on them.
So the French military command, there is nothing, absolutely nothing that NATO can do to stop it. The flight time is a matter of minutes. The kinetic energy alone, even without a nuclear payload, creates an impact similar to a meteorite strike. The realization is dawning on the European elite that they have gambled their national survival on the promises of a fading empire across the Atlantic. They are realizing that Washington may be willing to fight to the last Ukrainian, but isn't willing to trade New York for Paris.
That is a beautiful line. Americans will fight until the last Ukraine. Oh, what a stinging line. That was gold.
To see London burn to save face in a war that was lost months ago. The history of American foreign policy suggests otherwise. From Saigon to Kabul, the United States has a distinct pattern of cutting its losses when the cost of empire outweighs the benefits, leaving its local proxies to face the music alone. This crisis exposes the fundamental rot at the core of the liberal international order. It is an order built on coercion, not consent. It is an order that preaches...
I actually heard, I don't know how true this is because I got off YouTube or something, that the United States have already got boots on the ground in Ukraine, but Russia won't say it because that declares outright war. He's being patient.
It's the sanctity of borders while violating them in Serbia, Iraq, Libya, and Syria.
Okay,
it is an order that speaks of human rights while weaponizing the global financial system to starve populations into submission. The rest of the world sees this. The global south sees this. They watch as the West twists international law into a pretzel to justify its own aggression while condemning the defensive reactions of its adversaries. The rise of the multipolar world is not just about economics or trade alliances like BRICS. It is a rejection of this systemic hypocrisy. It is a demand for a return to Westphalian sovereignty, where states are respected based on their interests and capabilities, not judged by a moral hierarchy imposed by Washington. The Oreshnik is not just a missile. It is a message from the revisionist powers that the monopoly is broken. We must look back at the Cold War to understand the gravity of this moment. During the darkest days of the 20th century, there was at least a mutual respect
Bobo, do you know about the chip, do you?
for the mechanics of
Obviously, the chip's the mark of the beast.
deterrence. Leaders like Kennedy and Khrushchev, despite their ideological differences, understood the language of power and the necessity of back channels. They feared the bomb. Today, we are led by a class of technocrats and ideologues who have no personal memory of war, no understanding of nuclear strategy, and a delusional belief in their own moral superiority. They have forgotten that in the game of great powers, moral righteousness is not a shield against physics. They poked the bear, mocked its warnings, crossed its red lines, and now, when the bear strikes back with Mach 10 fury, they stand paralyzed, unable to comprehend that the rules of the game have changed. This is the classic trajectory of imperial decline: overextension, denial, and finally, a catastrophic collision with reality. The kinetic shock of the Oreshnik missile is terrifying, but it is merely the physical manifestation of a much deeper systemic failure that has been unfolding for nearly 3 years. If the missile strike proves that NATO's military deterrence is a hollow shell, the economic reality on the ground proves that the West's financial nuclear option was a dud. When this conflict began, the collective West didn't just send weapons, they declared total economic war. The plan drafted by technocrats in Brussels and Treasury officials in Washington.
And because they done that, everyone else turned to bricks. So America cut its own throat there.
Was explicit. They would weaponize the US dollar, seize sovereign reserves, and sever Russia from the global financial circulatory system. They arrogantly predicted the ruble would turn to ruble, that the Russian economy would contract by double digits, and that the population, starved of iPhones and McDonald's, would rise up and demand a return to the Western fold. It was the ultimate test of the neoliberal mechanism of control, the belief that access to Western markets is the oxygen of state survival. But look around you. Has the Russian economy collapsed? No. It has overheated. It is growing faster than any economy in the G7. The International Monetary Fund, an institution that serves as a pillar of Western economic hegemony, has been forced to repeatedly revise its growth forecast for Russia upwards, while the economies of Europe stagnate and deindustrialize. This is not just a miscalculation, it is a catastrophic failure of the primary weapon in the American arsenal, the sanction. The United States has sanctioned Russia more heavily than any nation in human history, over 16,000 restrictions. And yet, the grocery shelves in Moscow are full, the lights are on, and the factories are churning out tanks and missiles at a rate that NATO combined cannot match. How did the architects of the rules-based order get it so wrong? They forgot that the world is bigger than the G7. They operated under the delusion that they were the global economy. But in their attempt to isolate Russia, they achieved the exact opposite. They isolated themselves. They forced Russia to do what it had hesitated to do for 30 years, pivot east and south. By cutting Russia off from SWIFT, the West inadvertently jump-started the alternative financial architecture that will ultimately bury the petrodollar. We are seeing the rapid acceleration of the SIPS payment system, the expansion of the SPFS, and the widespread adoption of trade in local currencies. When India buys Russian oil in rupees or dirhams, when China trades in yuan, when Iran and Russia integrate their banking systems, they are building a fireproof house that the arsonists in Washington cannot burn down. This circumvention is not happening in the shadows anymore. It is the new normal. The shadow fleet, hundreds of tankers operate.
Last, I got to admit, I like Russia's policies on that. Because you give them an inch, and 20 years later, they're dressing up as drag queens in your kids' preschool story times. So I'm glad Russia does that. And I reckon that's why it's getting all these blessings, because it doesn't turn from God as bad as America does.
being outside of Western insurance and maritime law, is moving millions of barrels of oil every single day.
By the
Completely
rooster.
bypassing the G7's arrogant price cap. The price cap was a bureaucratic fantasy, a decree that demanded the market obey political whims. The market laughed. Russia simply sold its oil elsewhere, and the global south was more than happy to buy it. In a twist of supreme irony, Europe is now buying refined Russian energy products laundered through third parties like India and Turkey, paying a massive markup for the privilege of pretending they are tough on Putin. They are destroying their own industrial base, rendering German manufacturing uncompetitive, all to maintain a moral facade that everyone sees through. The resilience of the target nation is rooted in real resources. You cannot sanction a country that produces the food, the fertilizer, the energy, and the metals that the world needs to survive. You can print dollars.
You guys
You
are
cannot
funny.
print gas. You cannot print titanium. The West financialized its economy, building wealth on services, derivatives, and debt, while Russia, and increasingly China, focused on the tangible economy of atoms and production. In a prolonged conflict, the tangible always defeats the financial. The West tried to cancel a resource superpower, forgetting that they are the ones who are resource dependent. This is the systemic vulnerability that the war has exposed. The lever of power, do as we say or we crash your economy, has snapped in the hands of the American president. This brings us to the most dangerous aspect of this failure, the shattering of the media narrative. For years, the Western public has
Bobo, is that your Tinder name, Rooster? I suspect it is.
been fed a steady diet of propaganda that bears no resemblance to reality. We were told Russia was running out of missiles in March 2022. We were told they were fighting with shovels. We were told the Russian elite were about to overthrow the Kremlin. This narrative construction is a mechanism of control designed to manufacture consent for endless funding and escalation. But reality is a stubborn thing. You cannot spin a hypersonic missile strike. You cannot spin the loss of territory. You cannot spin the fact that American air defense systems, the vaunted Patriots, are being hunted and destroyed. The dissonance between what the public is told Ukraine is winning and what they see panic in London and Paris is creating a crisis of legitimacy at home. The establishment is losing control of the story because the story is visibly collapsing. The panic in Washington is not just about Ukraine.
Okay, but that's just my opinion. If we're going to judging America and Russia on morals, as far as I know, Russia's got pretty good morals in its laws. It's got better morals than the West, because all the West do gay marriage and gay pride march. None of that happens in Russia. And I like that fact.
It is about the sudden realization that they have played their ace card and lost. By seizing $300 billion of Russian sovereign assets, the United States crossed.
Yeah, Diane, we've got a lot of laughs since Bobo has shown up, haven't we? Bobo, you're a good laugh, mate.
The Rubicon. They sent a message to every central bank in the global south. Your money is not safe if you disobey us. Saudi Arabia saw this. Brazil saw this. Indonesia saw this. The result is a gold rush, literally. Central banks are dumping treasuries and buying gold at record rates to insulate themselves from American coercion. This is the beginning of de-dollarization. It is not an overnight event, but a historical process that has been accelerated by decades in just 2 years. The U.S. has weaponized the dollar to the point where the rest of the world views it as a liability rather than a store of value.
And that's true, guys. That's just so bad about this. That's true.
Establishment is terrified because they have no plan B. Their entire geopolitical strategy was based on the assumption that economic shock and awe would force a capitulation before a long war of attrition could expose NATO's industrial weakness. That assumption has evaporated. Now, they face a Russia that has mobilized its economy for war, a Russia that has battle-hardened its military, and a Russia that has secured its supply chain.
I went the wrong way.
supply chains through the Eurasian heartland beyond the reach of the U.S. Navy, the circumvention is complete. The blockade has failed. And now the empire is left with a stark choice: escalate to a suicidal kinetic war, as we saw with the missile permissions, or accept a humiliating strategic defeat that will mark the end of the unipolar moment forever. They chose escalation, and the Oreshnik was the answer. We are witnessing the unraveling of the post-World War II institutional framework. The UN is paralyzed, the G20 is fractured, and the World Trade Organization is irrelevant. In their place, we see the rise of the BRICS Plus, a grouping that now controls more GDP and more population than the G7. This is not just an economic club. It is a geopolitical lifeboat for nations tired of American bullying. The target nation's defiance has proven that the emperor has no clothes. If Russia can stand up to the combined economic might of the West and thrive, then the fear factor, the psychological glue of the American empire is gone. And once the fear is gone, the empire is finished. There is no spectacle in modern history more repulsive than a pyromaniac lecturing the village on fire safety. Yet, this is precisely the posture assumed by the Western establishment every time they stand at a podium to condemn Russia. They speak of sovereignty, territorial integrity, and human rights with a pious messianic zeal.
Where's the aborted babies' human rights? They all complain about the girls' rights. What about the babies' rights?
The world to suffer from collective amnesia. But the Global South remembers. The history books record the truth. The United States has spent the last 30 years trapping itself in a moral abyss of its own making, using the seductive.
Vas, I got to agree with you. And also, Russia has been building a lot of what do you call them? Nuclear fallout centers in their buildings. To build the buildings, they had to include what do you call them? Bunkers. They had to, they'd install bunkers. So they knew what was coming. They've looked after their populace. Not the same in America or Australia or England. We haven't got bunkers underneath our buildings.
Language of democracy promotion as a thin veneer for brutal resource extraction and geopolitical vandalism. They claim to be the architects of order. But if you look at their footprint, from North Africa to the Hindu Kush, they are the agents of pure chaos. This brings us to the moral trap that Washington has snapped shut around its own neck. The central lie of American foreign policy is the assertion that its interventions are benevolent. They tell us they invade to liberate, they bomb to protect, and they sanction to help. This is the myth of the indispensable nation. But let us apply the cold logic of realism to the track record. When the United States decides to bring freedom to a nation, the result is almost invariably the total destruction of that nation's state capacity, the fragmentation of its society along sectarian lines, and the unleashing of demons that haunt the region for generations. They do not build democracies. They build failed states. They do not export liberty. They export anarchy. Look at Iraq. The invasion of 2003 was the original sin of the 21st century, a crime of aggression based on lies so transparent that even the perpetrators now struggle to defend them. There were no weapons of mass destruction. There was no link to Al-Qaeda, but there was oil, and there was a strategic desire to reshape the Middle East into a compliant vassalage. The result? Over 1 million dead. The total disintegration of Iraqi society, the birth of ISIS in the vacuum left by the dismantling of the Ba'ath state, and the supreme irony, by destroying the Sunni buffer in Baghdad, the United States handed the region on a silver platter to Iran. Strategic genius? No. It was strategic suicide disguised as a crusade. And yet, the very same people who cheered for that war, the very same think tanks that justified that slaughter, are now the ones demanding we escalate against a nuclear superpower in Europe. They learn nothing because they never pay the price for their failures. Look at Libya. In 2011, under the cynical doctrine of responsibility to protect, NATO turned the most prosperous nation in Africa into a dystopian hellscape. Muammar Gaddafi was not a saint, but he provided stability. He warned the West that if he fell, the Mediterranean would become a sea of chaos and that terrorists would overrun North Africa. The West laughed. Hillary Clinton famously cackled, "We came, we saw, he died." And what is the legacy of that intervention? Open slave markets in the 21st century. A country fractured between warring warlords. A massive flow of weapons from looted Libyan armories, fueling insurgencies across the Sahel, destabilizing Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. They destroyed a functional state to stop a hypothetical massacre. And in doing so, they created a very real perpetual massacre. Was this about human rights? Or was it about Gaddafi's plan to introduce a gold-backed dinar to challenge the hegemony of the euro and the dollar? The realist knows the answer. Look at Syria. The Assad must go mantra became a fixation in Washington, London, and Paris. To achieve this, the CIA and its allies poured billions of dollars of weapons into the hands of so-called moderate rebels. A
Wow.
distinction that existed only in the fantasies of Western intelligence agencies. In reality,
I'll tell you what, the CIA should be put on trial. All the leaders of the CIA, wow, they're nefarious.
they were arming extremists, effectively acting as the Air Force for al-Qaeda affiliates in a desperate bid to topple a Russian ally and block a competing energy pipeline. They were willing to see Damascus burn and the black flag of the caliphate rise, just to deny Russia a foothold in the Mediterranean. This is not the behavior of a moral superpower. This is the behavior of a cynical empire that views foreign nations not as societies with people, history, and culture, but as squares on a chessboard to be sacrificed for tactical advantage. This pattern of intervention creates a moral trap because it destroys the West's credibility to adjudicate any future conflict. When Washington accuses Russia of war crimes, the rest of the world points to Fallujah. When they accuse Russia of violating sovereignty, the world points to the illegal occupation of eastern Syria, where U.S. troops currently sit on oil fields, stealing the resources of a sovereign nation they are technically not at war with. You cannot violate international law for decades and then clutch your pearls when another power decides to play by the rules you established. The rules-based international order has been exposed as a fraud, a system where the rules apply to everyone else, but never to the United States or its closest allies. The tragedy of this coercion is that it creates outcomes far worse than the original grievances. In every single case, Iraq, Libya, Syria, Afghanistan, the U.S. intervention removed a bad actor, only to replace him with chaos, terrorism, and misery. They destroy the Leviathan, the state authority, and are shocked when the result is a Hobbesian war of all against all. Now, they have attempted to apply this same model to Russia. They believe they could induce a collapse of the Russian state, perhaps hoping for a breakup of the Federation into smaller, manageable statelets that Western corporations could strip mine for resources. This was the dream of the 1,990 seconds, the dream of a weak, compliant Russia. But they miscalculated. Russia is not Iraq. It is not Libya. It is a civilization state with a 1,000-year history of repelling invaders, equipped with the world's largest nuclear arsenal, and a population that views this conflict not as a war of choice, but as
I don't think Russia's ever been conquered. Vas, would that be true? Russia's never been conquered, has it?
an existential struggle for survival. By applying the regime change playbook to a nuclear superpower, the West has walked into a trap of its own making. They have framed the conflict in existential terms, autocracy versus democracy, which means they cannot de-escalate without admitting that their entire worldview is false. They are trapped by their own rhetoric, forced to double down on a losing hand, because to fold would be to admit that the era of Western omnipotence is over. This moral bankruptcy is why the global South refuses to join the sanctions regime. They look at the current conflict and they do not see an unprovoked attack. They see the inevitable reaction to decades of NATO expansion and Western bullying. They see a West that weaponizes human rights, when it suits them and ignores them when it's inconvenient, supporting genocides in Gaza while crying crocodile tears for Ukraine. The hypocrisy is so thick you can cut it with a knife. The Oreshnik missile didn't just pierce the air defenses of Europe, it pierced the bubble of Western moral superiority. It forced the establishment to look in the mirror, and what stares back is not the shining knight of democracy, but a tired, blood-stained empire that has run out of lies to tell. The moral bankruptcy of the West was sustainable only as long as it was backed by overwhelming, uncontested power. But the moment the Oreshnik missile turned the sky over Ukraine into a physics lesson for
And here's Trump in his speeches saying, we are the strongest military in the world by far, yet they haven't got this supersonic weapon.
NATO generals, the era of impunity ended and the global reckoning began. We are now entering the most dangerous phase of this transition, the phase of asymmetric warfare and reciprocal escalation. The architects of this war in Washington and London seem to have forgotten Newton's third law. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. They believed they could escalate indefinitely, sending HIMARS, then tanks, then F-16 seconds, then ATACMS, and finally Storm Shadows without ever facing a kinetic response that threatened their own safety. They treated the Russian bear like a pincushion, assuming it would never swipe back because it feared the consequences. They were wrong. The bear has not only swiped back, it has torn down the fence that separated the spectators from the arena. We must understand the nature of the asymmetric warfare that is now unfolding. The West fights with money. The East fights with physics and production. The West relies on complex, expensive, over-engineered systems that require months of maintenance and billions of dollars to operate. The East, Russia, China, Iran, and their partners.
America relies on shock and awe in war. That's their forte, shock and awe.
Partners relies on mass, resilience, and cost-effective lethality. The Oreshnik is the perfect embodiment of this asymmetry. It is a weapon that renders the multi-billion-dollar air defense networks of NATO obsolete. It turns the aircraft carrier, the supreme symbol of American power projection, into a floating coffin. If a hypersonic missile can hit a bunker in Ukraine with pinpoint accuracy, it can hit a carrier group in the Mediterranean or the North Sea. The cost exchange ratio is fatal for the West. Russia can produce these missiles for a fraction of the cost it takes the West to build the targets they destroy. You cannot win a war of attrition when your enemy can destroy your assets faster and cheaper than you can replace them. But the reckoning...
Diane, how do you know if the French are at war? Because you see the German soldiers drinking champagne by the River Seine. I delivered that pretty bad.
It goes beyond just missiles. President Putin has explicitly warned that if the West provides long-range weapons to strike Russia, Russia reserves the right to provide advanced weaponry to regions where they can strike sensitive Western facilities. Let that sink in. This is the nightmare scenario for the Pentagon. Imagine Russian anti-ship missiles in the hands of the Houthis in Yemen, capable of closing the Red Sea entirely and sinking U.S. destroyers. Imagine advanced air defense systems in the hands of militias in Iraq and Syria, turning the skies into no-go zones for American aircraft. Imagine hypersonic technology shared with Iran or North Korea. By globalizing the Ukraine conflict, the West has invited Russia to globalize the response. The United States has 800 military bases scattered around the world like confetti. In an asymmetric war, these are not assets, they are 800 hostages. They are soft targets in a world where the monopoly on precision strike capability has been broken. While the United States exhausts its stockpiles and bankrupts its treasury in the mud of the Donbass, the true strategic competitor, China, is watching with quiet satisfaction. This is the grandest strategic blunder of all. Washington has driven Russia into the arms of Beijing, creating a formidable Eurasian bloc that combines Russian resources and military technology with Chinese industrial capacity. This is the alliance that Mackinder and Brzezinski warned against, the grand chessboard nightmare scenario. and the Biden administration has made it a reality. China is learning from every mistake NATO makes. They are studying how Western weapons perform, how the sanctions architecture works, and how to defeat them. The United States is bleeding its military readiness dry in a secondary theater, leaving it woefully unprepared for the primary challenge in the Pacific. The arsenal of democracy is empty.
Okay, the Mongols conquered them, you're right, but that was around 600 AD or something, wasn't it? Like that, yeah, Russia, I'm talking about the last 1,000 years. I don't think they've been conquered. Also, the Vikings ended up in Moscow. They didn't conquer it, but they showed up as, I don't know, you know how they just went to other cities?
We are seeing reports that it will take years to replenish the stocks of javelins and stingers, while Russia and China are ramping up production on a war footing. The industrial capacity of the West is being hollowed out by decades of financialization and offshore. And now, in a war of industries, they are finding that you cannot fight a war with hedge funds and consulting firms. This geopolitical tension is not just a game played by elites. It is a direct threat to your wallet, your savings, and your future. The inflation you are seeing at the grocery store and the gas pump is not a temporary glitch. It is the economic blowback of this war. When you sanction the world's largest commodity producer, you break the global supply chain. When you blow up the Nord Stream pipelines, you deindustrialize Europe and permanently raise the cost of energy. The West is currently financing this war by printing money, creating a debt bubble of apocalyptic proportions. But as the global South moves away from the dollar, the ability of the U.S. to export its inflation to the rest of the world is diminishing. The result will be a collapse in the standard of living for the average Western citizen. We are already seeing it. The erosion of the middle class, the spike in energy poverty, the crumbling infrastructure. The war is coming home, not in the form of missiles yet, but in the form of economic misery and social instability. The diplomatic mobilization against the West is equally damning. The sheer number of nations applying to join BRICS is a vote of no confidence in the American order. These nations see the weaponization of the dollar and the arbitrary seizures of assets, and they are running for the exits. They are building a parallel system of insurance, trade, and finance. This is the death knell of the Bretton Woods system. The United States is losing the global South, the very future of the global economy, because it insisted on treating them as vassals rather than partners. The vote in the UN, the refusal to condemn Russia by the majority of the world's population, proves that the international community the West speaks of is actually just the collective West, a shrinking minority island in a rising global ocean. We are entering a period of extreme danger. The West, realizing its strategy has failed, is like a cornered gambler chasing losses. They are escalating because they do not know how to reverse course. They are talking about sending troops, about coalitions of the willing, about striking deep into Russia. This is the logic of madness. They are flirting with nuclear Armageddon to save face in a proxy war they have already lost. The Oreshnik strike was a warning shot across the bow of civilization. It said clearly and unmistakably, stop or you will be destroyed. But are they listening? The silence from the leaders, followed by the doubling down of rhetoric, suggests they are sleepwalking into the abyss. They have convinced themselves that the Russian red lines are elastic, that Putin will never push the button. They are betting your life, your children's lives, and the existence of human civilization on a psychological assessment of a man they have demonized and misunderstood for 2 decades. The illusion of safety provided by the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans is gone in the age of hypersonic warfare. Distance is dead. New York, London, Paris, Berlin, these are no longer sanctuaries. They are targets on a grid. The decision makers who push for war from the safety of their think tanks needs to understand that the next escalation will not be absorbed by Ukrainian conscripts. It will be absorbed by the infrastructure and the populations of the nations that fueled the fire. The boomerang is coming back. The end of history has been canceled, and history has returned with a vengeance, wielding a hammer made of hypersonic steel. We are living through the American Suez moment, just as the Suez Crisis of 1956 brutally exposed the end of the British Empire.
Bobo, Putin's not the villain here. NATO's the villain.
Revealing that London could no longer act without the permission of Washington. The Ukraine conflict and the Oresnik strike have exposed the end of the American empire, revealing that Washington can no longer act without fear of Moscow or Beijing. The difference, however, is that the British had the wisdom, however reluctant, to accept their diminished status and adapt to the new reality. The current American leadership shows no such wisdom. They are trapped in a psychological prison of their own design, a twilight of the idols, where they continue to worship the gods of unipolarity and hegemony long after those gods have abandoned them. They are clinging to the illusion of control with the desperate, white-knuckled grip of a driver steering a car off a cliff.
Wow.
The choice facing the United States and its European vassals is now binary and unforgiving. There is no third option.
Bobo, you know what Ukraine means? Outer borders of Russia. Ukraine has been Russia's land forever.
The first option is adaptation. It requires a profound geopolitical humility that is entirely alien to the Washington establishment. It means accepting that the American century is over and that we are returning to the historical norm of a multipolar world, a world of great power competition, where the U.S. is a major player, perhaps the strongest player, but not the only player. It means negotiating a new security architecture in Europe that respects Russia's legitimate security interests. It means accepting that China is a peer, not a subject to be contained. It means retreating from the overextended frontiers of empire and focusing on domestic renewal.
I think America's got something like 800 bases across the world. 800 military bases across the world.
This path leads to stability, survival, and perhaps even a renaissance of American prosperity.
Guys, I'll do JW and finish with him.
Unburdened by the crushing cost of global policing. The second option is denial. This is the path of hubris, pride, and catastrophe. It involves doubling down on the failed policies of coercion, escalating the proxy war in a vain attempt to restore lost prestige, and gambling with the risk of nuclear annihilation to save face. It means ignoring the Oresnik warning and sending tomahawks or JASSMs into Russia, hoping that Putin is bluffing about the consequences.
Okay, Bobo, the good guy is Christ, but he's not coming yet. But out of them so far, who's got the moral supremacy? I'm going to say Russia. Here's something you don't know as well, Bobo. They had 6 biolabs, like, that one in Wuhan that done the COVID. It had 6 biolabs across its nation like that. And Russia wanted to get rid of that threat. So there's a little bit more to it than you think. They just didn't do it for the sake of it.
This path leads inevitably.
And America wanted to put borders on Ukraine, which was not going to. No way is the US going to ever accept that.
Lead to a direct kinetic collision between NATO and Russia, a war that cannot be won, only survived by the cockroaches. The tragedy is that the current trajectory of Western leadership, the rhetoric of total victory, the refusal to negotiate, the demonization of the adversary suggests they are firmly committed to this path of ruin. They would rather see the world burn than admit they were wrong. The myth of exceptionalism has been the opium of the American people for too long. It convinced the nation that it could break the rules of history, that it could spend more than it earned, bomb who it pleased, and dictate terms.
No, they're all bad, Bobo. They're all in the same club. But Russia didn't pick this. The West did. They keep poking the bear. They want the bear to fight back. We're starting with its supersonic weapons.
To ancient civilizations without ever facing a reckoning. The Oresnik missile shattered that myth. It proved that physics does not care about your narrative. It proved that in the high-stakes poker game of geopolitics, You cannot bluff a man who is holding a royal flush. The unipolar moment was a historical anomaly, a brief pause between the collapse of the Soviet Union and the rise of the East. That pause is over. The clocks have started ticking again. As we stare into the abyss, the silence of the Western media is the most damning sound of all. They are sleepwalking you into a nightmare, distracting you with trivial domestic squabbles, while the architects of foreign policy play Russian roulette with a fully loaded hypersonic gun. The era of the global policeman is dead, buried in the mud of the Donbass. The question is no longer how do we rule the world? The question is, can we share the world without destroying it? The answer depends on whether the establishment in Washington loves their children more than they love their empire. History suggests empires rarely go quietly into the night, but this time the price of noise is extinction. This channel exists to tell you the truths that the establishment wants to bury. We analyze the world as it is, not as the propagandists wish it to be. If you value this analysis and want to understand the mechanics of the New World Order before it hits you, you must subscribe and turn on notifications. The algorithm suppresses this content because it challenges the official narrative. Do not let them silence the reality. I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Answer me this.
Too late. What did I just see? Hang on. No, it goes through now. There it is.
The award-winning MY25 Nissan X-Trail range now in Raya with e-Power Hybrid for the price of petrol. All backed by Australia's only 10-year, 300,000-kilometre warranty. Head into your local Nissan dealer today.
What makes it taste so good?
Tasty, quality ingredients without added colours or preservatives. A little treat, a lot of care. Find out more about our quality at kinder.com.
There was other things that also took place.
Come on. I can see it picking you up. Come on. Oh, come on. Trump likes Putin because he can talk to Putin. Biden didn't touch Putin in 4 years he was in office. He never once contacted Putin. But Trump's done it twice already, and Putin listens, so that's why Trump likes him, I'm guessing.
This is following what just was seen with the planes having to be grounded because solar radiation spike that we just talked about yesterday. But now, today, biggest sunspot in decades could bring giant solar flare bright auroras December 1st, 2025. If you look on screen here, from the 1st of December all the way to the 5th, we're going to see a massive cluster of sunspots in the southeast quadrant. This is going to continue as we start to see ground effects as well. Now, with these ground effects that start to happen, here's where the details starts to get a little interesting here. They started to use these solar shields because the more powerful energy coming in is something that they had to compensate for.
But it was something to do with nuclear energy or something like that that did need oxygen.
And what are they using specifically?
Can't remember what it was, though.
To help you in ways as well. So aerospace engineers went and put this shield. It acts like heavy-duty sunblock, keeping Roman's instruments safe from the sun's heat and glare, explains Stevens. They're basically giant aluminum sandwiches with metal sheets and thin as a credit card on top and bottom. And the central portion made up of honeycomb structure, said Mason. Each panel is about 7 by 7 feet, 3 inches thick, wrapped around polymer blanket that uses 17 layers on the side and 1 on the shaded side. So this is what they're doing. And here's something you can look up on your free time if you want to look deeper into this type of like protection. Type in solar shield aluminum and you'll find more in your results there. Now, what's more interesting about this? There was a Philip Chapman, who was a real NASA astronaut and physicist. He did express concerns about geomagnetic weakening and space weather risk, but his most dramatic statements circulating online today are from interviews and commentary, not official NASA advisories. Now look on screen here. He warned that if the Earth's magnetic field continued weakening, space agencies might eventually need stronger shielding for satellites and astronauts. That's exactly what they're doing right now. And when we look at this and we talk about how the navigation systems are starting to have issues and everything else, I'm going to actually, just yesterday, I saw it myself. I was driving around and I saw my whole navigation start to mess up. Some of you was telling me that you came to this video and it said the video wasn't available or something like that. And others telling me that you're having issues with all types of equipment. Let's take a deeper look at something. If we look at this map, this is the pole drift chart. It shows the changing location of the Earth's magnetic poles over time. We're going to go all the way up to where we're at currently and past where we're at. Why is this important? This is caused by changes in the deep earth beneath us. This is important for navigation systems, and if they don't know this, they cannot navigate. So the magnetic declination viewer that you're looking at here plays a huge role in why they couldn't fly anymore, and our magnetic systems are starting to just shift on us. Like I seen it yesterday. I don't know if you were starting to see this stuff, but a lot of this start to come up more frequently. Now, what is the other situations that are happening currently? I'm not tying them together, but I'm saying that where we're looking at in Yellowstone, scientists are watching how the Earth's activity influences the Earth's magnetic field, and Yellowstone sits on one of the most magnetically sensitive regions. As we look here, the subterranean ecosystems have been getting awakened a little bit more over this week. The research from Montana State highlights subsurface impact of Yellowstone earthquakes. Now, going deeper into it, this is the researcher who went there. And it's Boyd, the lead author of the new paper titled Seismic Shifts in the Geochemical and Microbial Composition of Yellowstone Aquifer.
Yeah.
And what he found was that these thousands of earthquakes, these microbes beneath the surface, along with chemicals that they need to survive, wouldn't have been there in the earlier periods of life. They would have been much deeper below. But he says in early life, most likely early life originated underground. The question is, how did they survive there? And that's what they're trying to figure out. They're trying to figure out what are these life forms doing and how are they surviving there? But at the same time, they read with thermal infrared remote sensing at Yellowstone to see thermal anomalies whenever certain radiation, solar radiation comes in. And in the past, what they've saw is we'll have these heat ups happen, and it's not just geothermal subsurface temperature. They say they'll measure it from solar radiation, and they'll see that that temperature is much higher than the actual subsurface. So whatever is happening beneath is a direct result of certain things happening above as well. We're seeing a shift in a lot of ways that is occurring. Now, going into another part of the situation, what is going on with the Yellowstone wolves? A lot of them wolves have been continuous ever since 1995, but a couple of them are leaving and straying off from Yellowstone. And when we go deeper into that picture, the ecologists, this is controversy, it's happening right now, but they're saying that some of them are straying off and going to different locations, like the north, where most of the wolves are coming out of Yellowstone and go in part. They say that's because that's where they go in the winter, and the wolves follow looking for food. But she said, made it extremely far from Yellowstone Park. Wolves in Montana, about 10 miles in January, park officials were driving north of the park with telemetry equipment, listening for collared animals. They heard what's called mortality signal, indicating that she hadn't moved in 12 hours or more. So again, they've been looking around for them. Some animals like to be close by these areas when the activity changed. I think elk was one of them as well. So we're looking at all these different shifts and everything that's happening and that's occurring right now. And when we look at the map once again, this is really right now what they have to look at with the analyzation of navigation systems with flights and patterns and everything else. And they're creating these new pieces to put inside the planes because it was about 2024 first when they said the poles flipped. And pilots were saying, well, our navigation systems are kind of not active.
I'll tell you what, I don't know if I'd jump on a plane at the moment. If I was going to Bali or somewhere like that and I heard this, I'd be very concerned.
Accurate as they were. And then they had to switch it. Now it's even progressed more with the solar situation incoming. So yes, this week we'll be facing multiple scenarios still. This has not ended. And this is going to be something that's going to be very important that you take precautions with. They say that there is no official health concerns for people like us. And again, you in the comment section, I've just been listening to you and looking at what you've been saying. And somebody said that's a lot of iron moving around and liquid magma is affecting Earth's magnet. So whenever the pole drift happens and we look at the pole drift, apparently, yes, deep down below, there is movement with molten rock. That's what's been reported officially, molten rock having movement. And that's happening deep below in multiple regions, not just in the United States, but UK, Australia, Japan. This is all something that's playing out here. I'll read a little bit what this researcher said. I didn't read all of it. Work brought together extensive data on the underground systems of the national park. This is Yellowstone. He was specifically at Norris Geyser Basin at Yellowstone. He just went there. And he said, including measurements of thousands of earthquakes and exploration of microbes that live beneath the surface, along with chemicals they need to survive. Early Earth, Boy said, didn't have an atmosphere like the one it has today, so radiation levels on the surface would have made it uninhabitable. So that's why all the things that was existing went below. Because apparently we had this big radiation event. And this guy says is that magnetic field weakening at same max rate, claims the NASA former worker as during last extinction event. So this is something we've been really looking deep into. And he talks about, moreover, if the field weakens substantially while we are still in the coming grand solar minimum, the climate may become much colder than the little ice age. This prospect demands immediate serious attention, including objective studies of the connection between the GCRs and climate close observations, global geoscience. Let's see what happens.
The little ice age. In the 1700s, the temperature in Europe dropped a lot for about 200 years. And Stradivarius used to make his violins in that time. And the reason his violins were so good, so nice, is because the wood was so compacted being in a cold climate, because it had a minor ice age for nearly 200 years. And that's why Stradivarius violins sound so nice, because they're from them sort of trees.
What comes out of all of this? And what are you currently?
Just a little bit trivia, guys.
Dealing with right now that you feel that as a community we should be put much higher focus into? Secondly, there's another thing, like I told you, like basically these next course of days, you are dealing with a scenario where you should think about the darker clothing just so it can protect the layers of the skin from the UV and everything else that's already been confirmed that actually happens. And secondly, like I said just the other day, December 5th is my coming birthday. If you look in the chat right now, you'll be able to donate to me via PayPal, via Cash App. I put both of those links December 5th. Yes, I'll be 33 years old. I don't have any current plans for my birthday at all because, like I said, This has been a tough year. I put all my time and effort right here for everybody to make sure they can have everything needed as possible. So yeah, this will be the first year I don't really have any plans for my birthday, but whatever. End of the day, your support here helps me get through it.
Okay, guys, I'm out. I'm going to take it back a bit. So when I press stop the stream, it takes that image instead of this guy's head. Oh, man, hang on.
Every single thing helps us get more information out, helps us together interact as a community. You here really have kept us going on JWTV. I don't think you know how important it is. So that